Hi, I'm Charlie, and this is Munching Around Milwaukee. Munching Around Milwaukee is a podcast where we talk with local chefs, restaurateurs, foodies, and food influencers about the great, vibrant food scene we have here in Milwaukee. So today, my guest is Chef Gregory León.
Sir.
Chef, good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So Chef León is the owner chef at Amilinda Restaurant here downtown Milwaukee, just up the road on Wisconsin Avenue. Amilinda is, and we'll talk about this when we get to Amilinda, is getting ready to celebrate its 10th anniversary. It's consistently on the best restaurants list here in Milwaukee, and Chef has also been nominated for 4 James Beard Awards since he's been here. So congratulations!
Thank you very much
on all that stuff.
Thank you.
So let's talk about how we got here. So I know you were born in Oklahoma.
Yes.
And then you were born, but then you moved to Venezuela.
Venezuela, correct.
Okay.
My father's Venezuelan. He came to the U.S. in the late 60s to learn English and go to college. My mother was actually born in Superior, Wisconsin. And so when she was a child, relocated to Oklahoma. When she was, I believe, a senior in high school, she met my dad. She graduated, they got married. I came along, and then when I was 5, we moved to Venezuela. My dad wanted to go back to his home country for a couple of years, and that turned into 14 years.
Right. So one of the things we kind of talked about, and I've read this in interviews about your life growing up, is that in Venezuela, it's frowned upon for men to be in the kitchen.
It's a weird situation because on the weekends, my dad would cook, my uncles would cook. We had my parents had male friends who would cook, but it wasn't, I think it was acceptable if it was like a special occasion thing. So like on the weekends, my dad would grill or they would cook fish, but there's music playing. All my uncles were there. You know, it's like the day-to-day cooking was more of like a woman's situation.
Right. So with the interesting thing, and I don't know how it is in Venezuelan restaurants, but here in the United States, the overwhelming majority, like 75% of chefs in restaurant are men. Mm-hmm. I think in Milwaukee, actually downtown, we're closer to a 50-50 split, especially with some of the better restaurants. There's a good population of female owner chefs and restaurateurs here in the city.
There's some fantastic and very talented female chefs in Milwaukee.
Absolutely. So let's talk about how you translated your passion for food into an avocation. Since you were, in Venezuela, it was, did you have to sneak around?
Well, I didn't really do a lot of cooking in Venezuela. Like every once in a while, I would, especially when I got older. But my mother, that was kind of my mom's relaxation, was going into the kitchen in the afternoons and baking and doing that kind of stuff. So we kind of stayed out of the kitchen because that was her domain. As I got older, then she would let me kind of play around, but I didn't. Not a lot. It was nothing meaningful. I would grab her cookbooks and take them into my bedroom and read them. And then I moved to Oklahoma, tried my hand at college, did poorly, got kicked out of the University of Oklahoma. I think my GPA was probably like 1 point something. I can't even remember. But it was pretty bad. And I remember, so this was like 1992, and I remember telling a friend then that I wanted to become a chef. And I realized that I wanted to become a chef. There was a show on Discovery Channel back in the day, and it was called Great Chefs of the World, or Great Chefs of the Southeast, and it was not a cooking show. It was divided into 3 segments, like starter, entree, and dessert, and the show would be in the kitchen with the chef, and the chef would be preparing the dish, but you weren't getting measurements. The chef wasn't talking. It was not a show to teach you how to cook. It was kind of see how they did things. There'd be a voiceover. It was a very calming lady would tell you what chef is doing, and you would just get to see how they were cooking. And I remember after floundering through college and a few jobs, I was sitting there watching the show one afternoon, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is what I want to do. I can do this." Let's remember it was 1992.
Right.
Food Network had just started.
Right.
Not a lot of big name chefs in the U.S. I think we knew who Emeril Lagasse was, and that was about it. At the time, unless you lived in the city, the big national culinary centers were San Francisco and New York.
Right.
So it wasn't like now where I was like, oh, I want to be a chef, I want to be on TV. It was just, it had no cachet whatsoever. So I remember watching the show and being like, oh, this is what I want to do. This is what I do. And I remember telling my dad, the same day I told my dad I was gay, I told him I wanted to become a chef. And he was more upset about me becoming a chef. I told him I came out of the closet and he was washing some dishes and I'm like, do we need to talk about this? And he literally turned to me and he says, your mother and I've known for years. What is there to talk about?
Right.
It can't be changed. This is who you are. So I'm very grateful. My family's very supportive. So he's more supportive about me being gay.
Except you're cooking.
Except than cooking. He's like, what are you going to do with that? Work at McDonald's? Not that there's anything wrong with working at McDonald's. But, that kind of like hurt my feelings. I realized many years later that it wasn't that he thought I couldn't do a good job. It was like, he just didn't know. What are you going to do with this?
Right.
So maybe about a year and a half later, I was having dinner with a friend of mine who had been in San Francisco, and he's like, "If you're really serious about this, you need to get the hell out of Oklahoma." At the time, Oklahoma had no culinary scene whatsoever. It was either San Francisco or New York. It was December, and I'm like, "You're crazy. I don't know anybody in either city. How? No." And I went home and I thought about it, and I was like, "Why not?" So I hopped on a bus, went to San Francisco because it's California. It's the month of December. If I go to New York and by chance I have to sleep at the park, it's going to be snowing. So I'm going to go to California where it's always sunny, not knowing. So I had I think it was like $700 in my pocket, and I didn't tell my family. And I got on a bus, and 2-3 days later, I landed in San Francisco. I got off the bus. It was pouring down rain, and it was cold and foggy, and I remember getting off that bus and just thinking, what the hell have I done with my life? But I'm like, I cannot go back, so let's figure this out.
There's a Mark Twain quote that says, the coldest...
Yeah.
Winter I ever spent was the summer I spent in San Francisco.
Correct. And so things just fell into place. I did sleep in the park for a couple days. But, when you're 24, you can do those things.
Right.
But things immediately fell into place. So I've always believed that was where I was supposed to be, that I was meant to go to San Francisco, kind of like when I came to Milwaukee. Milwaukee was not on my list of places to visit. I didn't know where it was. And things just really fell into place. It was perfect. I get a lot of deja vu when I'm at the restaurant. When you have deja vu, it means that you are where you're supposed to be. So I was in San Francisco for 18 years.
Okay.
During those 18 years, I would go off to Spain and work for a while. Every now and then, especially after my grandfather passed away, I would be I need to be close to my family. So I would go to Oklahoma. I'm like, I'm going to stay here and cook. And I'd be there for 3 months. I was like, yeah, this is not for me. And I would go back to San Francisco. But San Francisco was my residency for 18 years. 2012, I was just this is too expensive. I'm 42. I've got 12 roommates. And I'm sleeping in a closet. And I'm always broke because it's expensive. And I packed up my dog and my belongings. And we traveled the U.S. that whole spring and summer. And towards the end, I went to Portland, Oregon at the beginning of my travels, and I was like, okay, this is where I'm going to move to. Portland's got a great food scene, because I wanted to find a city that had a food scene,
right,
so I could open a restaurant and make a living. And I went to Venezuela to visit my family, and it was the end of August, and I was in Oklahoma spending time with my brothers, and my friend David Walls, which I'm sure everybody knows, was come visit Milwaukee. And I was I don't know where Milwaukee is. I don't know what that is. What is that? And I looked it up in a map, and I was like, oh, cool, it's by the lake, which I really liked, because I grew up by the water of Venezuela. But I was it's really far up north. It looks like it'd be really cold. But he nagged, and so I told him, I said, I can't afford it. I hadn't worked in months. I was living off savings. So I was David, I don't have the money to buy a full ticket. The airline didn't fly to Milwaukee at the time. And 2 days later, he texted me, and he says, be at the airport Friday morning at XYZ. I got you a ticket with some of my miles. I really think you need to come visit Milwaukee. And I was oh, crap. Okay, fine. I'm I'll come visit. So
that's what most people say.
So my dog Guy, and I came to Milwaukee. We got here on a Friday. By Wednesday, I was okay, this is really pretty. The weather was beautiful. It was the end of August. So I was this is perfect.
He fooled you.
He did, because if I would have come in December or January, I don't think I'd be sitting here right now. And by Wednesday, I was just okay, I kind of like this. These people are nice. It's a city, but it's not crazy. And then I was actually just telling this story on Sunday. We went out to this restaurant that had just opened called Odd Duck.
Sure.
And it was David and I, Sandy Anderson, and Jeffrey Montoya, and we're sitting there eating dinner. And I'm eating, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, this restaurant could be in San Francisco. This food is really, really good. And so I went outside to have a cigarette, and Ross and Melissa were out there, but I had no idea who they were. I thought she was the host, and I thought he was just a line cook. And so I'm asking them, like, oh, what is it like to, work in a restaurant in Milwaukee? What's the scene like? Is there a market for good food? And they gave me all the right answers. And I went back inside, and Sandy looks at me out of the blue, and she says, you need to just move here and do a pop-up restaurant. And I was like, you're drunk. I don't have any money for that. And, here we are 13 years later.
So Ross and Melissa are the owners of Odd Duck.
Yeah.
You fast forwarded to when you're going to do a pop-up, and you meet or get introduced to Chef Nell Benton.
Correct.
Who's the owner of the National.
Yes, we like to call her, she is the godmother of Amilinda.
Okay.
So, while I was traveling that summer and spring, this was when Twitter was still cool, and it was a great place to be. I would get on Twitter, and I'd be like, #Milwaukee, I'm coming to visit, I'm a chef. What do I need to see? Where do I need to eat? And Lori Fredrich saw my tweet and responded. And I met her and her husband, and then Jen Eid, who had launched, or she's about to launch, Edible Milwaukee. I'm talking to Lori Frederick. We became friends, and one day she's like, I want to write an article about you. And I was like, for what? Like, there's nothing to write about me. And she says, well, I want to know why a chef from the West Coast would come to Milwaukee and want to cook here. And I was like, okay. So we did this article, which introduced me to, the readers and a lot of people in the food industry without me even knowing it. And I ended up meeting my partner, Ori, and we were talking one day, and he's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to open a restaurant. I don't want to work for anybody else. I want to open a restaurant. And so pop-ups, had started to gain, notoriety, I guess, in 2008 after the market crash in San Francisco. And it was, back then, it's like, oh my God, this is the most amazing idea. How come nobody's thought about this? So I reached out to Lori, and I was like, hey, Lori, I want to open a restaurant, but before that, I want to do it as a pop-up, introduce my food to the community, and kind of get to know people. Who should I talk to? I need a place that's not open for dinner. So she said, talk to Nell. I had met Nell at an event, and I can't remember what it was, maybe about a month before, but it was just an introduction. Mm-hmm. So she's like, here's her email. Write her a note. She'll help you out. So I sent Nell an email, and I'm assuming this lady doesn't know who I am. If she responds, it'll be later. Within an hour, I get a response from her, and she says, okay, come by today, and we'll talk. And I was like, okay. Excuse me. So I go and I meet her, and again in my mind I was like, she's either going to say no, or she's going to have to think about it, so I'm sitting in the meeting with her, and by the time we're done, she's like, okay, you can start on Saturday. And I was like, well, I'm not quite prepared yet, but thanks. And I'm like, don't you want to try the food? And she's like, no. So we started the pop-up. We did the first 3 were monthly, the one in December of 2013, and then January and February of 2014. We did at different locations. Mm-hmm. And then we started, I believe it was March of 2014, we started at the National every Saturday night. And we did that until about January of 2015. My favorite story, and I think just illustrates what an amazing human being she is, we had worked out a deal where she had the liquor license. So we were going to sell her liquor. Obviously, she got all those receipts. And then I was going to pay her, I think it was like $140 to use the restaurant every Saturday. So we do the first pop-up. She comes in for dinner. As she's leaving, she says, come in tomorrow. Let's talk. I'll make you guys some breakfast. And I was like, okay. I'm like, either she hated it or something's up. So we go in the next morning. She cooks us breakfast, and she comes and sits down with us. Oh, we gave her the envelopes of money. She brings us our food, sits down, hands me the envelope with the $140 for the rent. She says, I can't take this. And it's like, crap. She hated it. What am I going to do? And I was like, why can't you take it? She says, I was in here for dinner last night. I had your food, and I really believe in what you're doing. And so I want you to take this money, and I want you to save it because I want you to open your restaurant. And after much back and forth, I got her to accept some money from me because I'm like, I'm not going to use your restaurant for free. But that's just the kind of human being she is.
Well, she's going to be on the show, I think, early June.
She's amazing.
Yeah. So
I was just talking to her yesterday. Actually.
Oh, good. Well,
she's one of my best friends, and she's somebody that I look up to. And I admire the work that she does. There's only 2 people that I really worry about disappointing in life, that I just do not want to disappoint. Right. One is my Aunt Amy, my mom's younger sister, who I'm very close with, and the other one's Nell Benton.
Well, I think she's very proud of where you are today. So I say now we're opening Amilinda.
Okay. Are we opening the pop-up or are we opening the restaurant?
Well, you tell me whichever you would go. But we're getting ready right now, as we mentioned in the opening. It's just 10 years.
Yeah.
So
That's I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around the fact that it's been 10 years. Sometimes when I wake up in the morning, it feels like it's been 10 years on my back. But then I think about it, and I'm like, how can that have been? But so we opened Amilinda. We did the pop-up for about a year. Introduced ourselves to a lot of people in the city. We got invited to do the fondue feast for the first time. Mm-hmm. And then we're looking for locations. We're trying to save money, but we're making enough money that my partner and I can make a living, pay our bills, but not enough that we're saving. That's like, oh my God, we're going to be able to open a restaurant. So we got up one morning. Oh, and so Nell was going to start doing, I think it was the National at Night or something like that. So we knew January of 2015 was going to be the end of our stay there. And I just remember getting up one day and talking to Ori and being like, this is not going to happen. Like, we don't have any money to do this. We're about to end the pop-up. I'm like, I'm just going to go get a job and work for somebody else. And he's like, you don't want to do that. You're going to hate it. You're going to be miserable. And I'm like, yeah, but what are we going to do? Well, I need the job. So he says, well, let's go talk to our friends, Steve and Jennifer, who used to have a place downtown. I can't remember the name of it. It was a soup place. Because they had said, you can use our space. So I was like, I'm whatever. I'm like, fine. So we get on the bus. I think it was the Green Line. Get off on Wisconsin Avenue in Milwaukee. And we start walking towards water. And we walk by 315 East Wisconsin Avenue. And now I had been adamant about not wanting to open a restaurant downtown.
Right.
Like, there's what's going on downtown. It's dead. Nobody's opened a restaurant in downtown in years, as far as I can tell. No. And we walk by 315, and there's a sign that says for rent, and all we can see is the hood, the exhaust system for the kitchen.
Right.
And so Ori's like, oh, look. And I'm like, I'm not even looking at it. I'm like, I'm not interested. And he, unbeknownst to me, he took the number and called and made an appointment for the next day for us to go look at it. And, I'm like just bitching at him. I'm like, what are we going to do? We don't have money. I'm going to not go to the space. You're crazy, whatever. And we walk in, and the first thing out of my mouth is like, this place is a shithole. Sorry, I pardon my French. And I've got pictures of what it looked like. It was horrible. So it had been closed for 4 years.
Uh-huh.
It had been a Thai restaurant before that. It had been a Chinese restaurant before that. My understanding is the space had been a restaurant since, I think the late 80s.
Okay.
So I remember we go in and look at the space. It's like, this is just disgusting. Like, it was dirty. It had been abandoned for 4 years. I'm like, no. And he's like, you need to look past. And I was like, that's not how my brain works. I'm like, I don't like it. I'm like, I'm not. No. We go meet with Steve and Jennifer. Or he's calling these people. He's making an appointment to do a walkthrough. Behind my back. Like, I didn't really know he was doing this. So finally, he's like, okay, yeah, we're going to go sign a lease. And I was like, we have no money. Like, I have no money in the bank. What is wrong with you? It's good to be 27 and we can do everything. So yeah, we signed the lease. We were able to put the deposit down because Yolande, a friend of ours who used to do Afrofusion, had given us the money for the deposit, and so we signed a lease, and the rest is history.
Well, and one of the things that to me is interesting about Milwaukee, and you were probably right on the cusp of how the city turned from a place that was it's okay to where it is now, which is it's a great.
I feel like my timing was perfect.
But the chefs helping chefs is so prevalent throughout the city.
Yeah. When I lived in San Francisco and cooked through those 18 years, I was never, nobody knew who I was. I was just this guy who was cooking. So if there was that sense of camaraderie there amongst the chefs, I never saw it because I was never part of that community. You know what I mean? I'm just like somebody's line cook. But it really surprised me how friendly and how helpful they were all to each other.
Yeah.
Do we love every single chef in Milwaukee? No, there's 3.
No, we don't need to say the bad ones.
I won't say the bad ones, but there's probably 3 or 4 that I'm like, But for the most part, everybody is pretty friendly and everybody helps each other, and that was really surprising to me. Like, at first, I was like, "What is going on here? Like, are you trying to, are you giving me these phone numbers because you're trying to sabotage me? Like, are these people really crappy?" I think that one of the reasons our restaurant scene didn't suffer as much as other cities during the pandemic was because we were all kind of keeping an eye out for each other and trying to help each other out. So.
Yeah. This is small Milwaukee, where it is a city, and we've got Major League Baseball, we've got basketball, we've got arts, we've got all kinds of great restaurants, but it's not huge, it's not overwhelming. So I think that lends itself to both the sense of small Milwaukee and everybody trying to help each other, because we're nice Midwestern people.
I was going to say, it does have a lot to do with the quality of people.
So, one of the things I want to ask you, but as you're approaching your 10th anniversary, what do you have in mind for both Amilinda? And since all the plans you've made before the rest of your life, you say, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing that. And then for yourself, personally.
Oh, God. Honestly, I haven't made any plans for myself. I just kind of go with the flow and see what happens. I joke around that they're going to find my corpse standing at the saute station at Amilinda, that I will be cooking there until the day I die, which is not a bad thing. I am a firm believer that if it's not broken, don't fix it. And I've seen in my 30 years of being in the restaurant industry, little restaurants like ours that have a big following, people come in like, oh my God, I feel like I'm in your house. We'll get to the point where we are, where we're fairly successful, fairly well known, people like us, we have a following, and they either decide to change spaces or expand. And that's always been, in my experience, from what I've seen, has been the kiss of death. Because you lose that certain something the restaurant has.
Right.
So we're not expanding. We're not opening another one. We're not moving to another. We're just going to keep it the way it is, and continue to bring in amazing people to help us cook, and just keep serving great food. Like, I wish I had something more climactic to share with you, but
that's good. That's good.
We don't want to mess with things. People like what we are.
So, going in conjunction with Chefs Helping Chefs, you're involved in a lot of charity work in town. Most recently, you were at Dim Sum Give Some, with basically a who's who in the restaurant business.
Almost everybody was there, I think.
Both chefs, restaurateurs, and food influencers all in one place. But this again, and we talked about this earlier, if a chef calls you, you're there. If you call them, they're there. I think what it allows you to do is it's another creative outlet. You get to do something creative that's a little bit off what you normally do, but you get to be involved. You're in the community. I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, it's really fun, and everybody seems to have a good time. This past, I would say within the last 12 months, we did Fondue Feast, which I love. It's one of my it's one of the events I've loved to do the most. It's outside. The weather's beautiful. I love what the Fondue Food Center is doing. Their mission is great. So this year will be our 11th year doing it. We also went to Sanford to help them celebrate their 35th anniversary, and that was pretty incredible. Justin, I can't say enough good things about that guy. If there is somebody who is the anti-chef in the sense of how chefs are supposedly behave and their temper, that would be him. I've never met somebody who is just so nice and so down to earth as that guy, and so talented because his food is so good. So he invited me to go cook there for 3 days with a bunch of other people. That was great. I got to meet Sandy, which was fantastic. That was fun. What else have we done we do tables across borders where we invite the refugees to come cook at Amilinda, which is something I'm super proud of. That we started that with our friend Kai, and that's an amazing project. We're getting to help a family just recently arrived to Milwaukee, or maybe it's been here for a while, but it's not from here.
Right.
So we try to make them feel at home, maybe feel a little bit more like they're part of the community, and then we get to learn by watching them cook. They use some of the same ingredients we might be using, but it's interesting to see how they do it in a different way. What else? What other projects have we done? There's so many, I feel.
Well, that's part of what is great about the city. The food scene here is that everybody kind of bands together, and you're not really in competition as much as you are facilitating a great food scene. Because I'm sure you'd like it, but nobody goes to the same restaurant day after day after day. No. And you're going to different places, and if you're promoting one or you're helping someone else and they're helping you, it's a win-win.
It is that Midwest nice. So AJ from Lazy Susan, I like to call her my kitchen mom. Because she'll call me and be like, you need to take that post down, or why are you doing that? Nell also, why are you doing this? Or that's a stupid idea. Do it this way. So
the last question I want to ask you, that you are very visible on social media.
Okay.
Your social awareness is out front. And I just recently, I saw you were at an event with Tammy Baldwin, Senator Tammy Baldwin. And you were talking to her about the
Tariffs.
trials and tribulations of small business owners and how the tariffs and the other stuff that's going on in the government affects you. So, because of your stature, and
I have stature.
yes, you do.
Okay.
Kind of.
Okay.
More than I do. But I mean, you can talk about you've had a small business for 10 years. How this stuff is affecting you, but also some of the other things that you don't mind speaking your mind.
Correct. I know that everything I do and say and the way I behave in public affects the restaurant and affects the people that work for me. So my priority is to make sure that I don't do or say anything that's going to affect their ability to make a living.
Right.
So for every 3 posts that you see from me, there's probably 7 that I wrote out and then deleted. I always hear my dad's voice in the back. Don't post that. You have a restaurant. And in fact, Nell and I had a conversation recently about. She's like, you need to be careful what you put out there because it might hurt your business. But I also feel like I have a platform. This restaurant is a platform, and why not use my voice to make the community and hopefully the world maybe a little bit of a better place, and to call people out on their BS. If I don't do it,
Right.
who else is going to do it? If we don't take charge, who else is going to do it? But I'm always, even though when you read some of them, you don't think so, but I'm always very mindful to be careful what I put out there because I have an amazing staff. After 10 years, I finally look out to the dining room and I'm like, oh my God, I love you all. Over the last 10 years, we've had great people working for us. I've had some amazing people come through that restaurant. But I'd have some that I really liked, and then I've had others that I'm like, I want to drown you in the toilet right now. I'm like, what is your problem? But I finally look out there now after 10 years, and I'm like, you're all fantastic. So I want to make sure that they stick around at Amilinda for a long time and that they can make a living. So I have to be careful what I say sometimes.
Thanks so
Sir,
much for coming.
thank you very much.
I appreciate you taking the time today. It's a kind of a okay day here in Milwaukee. We talked about you get lulled into.
It looks super warm in there because it's sunny today and the sky's blue, and then you go outside and it's like, oh, that's right, it's like 45.
degrees. And thanks for supporting Munching Around Milwaukee. This podcast airs weekly, where we talk with our local chefs, restaurateurs, foodies, and food influencers about our wonderful food scene here in Milwaukee, and we really do love it. So please like and support, and thanks again for supporting Munching Around Milwaukee.